We think of growth and revenue as a byproduct of running a good company. Like the goal, like obviously we're in business. We want to be able to make money. But like if we're not doing right by our customers, we're not doing right by our brands, and we're not doing right by ourselves, we do not deserve to exist as a business. And so we should fail. We want to be able to provide value. And we believe that if at the end of the day we're doing that, there's going to be value that comes back to us and to our brands.
Welcome to Long Run Labs, a weekly podcast from the team behind For the Long Run, telling the stories of those running the outdoor industry where endurance and entrepreneurship meet. In this conversation, I spoke with Lloyd Vogel, co-founder and CEO of Garage Grown Gear. We discussed Lloyd's journey in the outdoor industry, the impact of the pandemic on outdoor activities, and the challenges and opportunities faced by small brands. Lloyd emphasizes the importance of brand identity, community connection, and the role of influencers in marketing. He shares insights on building trust and authenticity in business, as well as the unique business model of Garage Grown Gear, which focuses on supporting small brands. The conversation also touches on marketing strategies, the importance of genuine relationships, and the future of outdoor brands in a changing landscape. I hope you enjoy. This episode is brought to you by Superfiliate, the affiliate platform that actually makes partnership marketing simple. I've worked with just about every affiliate platform out there, and honestly, most of them are overcomplicated, overpriced, and a headache to use on both sides. Superfiliate flips that script. Setup takes minutes, tracking is seamless, and payouts are crystal clear. It's the one platform I trust because it just works. If you're a brand looking to scale partnerships, Superfiliate makes it easy to get affiliates genuinely excited to promote your products. With co-branded landing pages, rewards in cash or credit, and tools built to inspire action, it's the platform that finally delivers. Skip the hassle and go to superfiliate.com. Mention this podcast and your first month is free. And welcome back to the Long Run Labs podcast. We have Lloyd Vogel joining from St. Paul, Minnesota, one of the friendliest places I've ever been. Lloyd, thanks so much for taking some time to chat.
Thanks for having me, Jonathan. Yeah, it is. Minnesotans, kind people, it turns out.
Definitely. I was there on a work trip in 2016, and I was there by myself to meet with the Minnesota Twins, and I didn't eat a meal by myself. It was crazy. I would just sit down and be absorbed by whoever was around me.
Wow. Yeah, Minnesotans, I'm a native Wisconsinite, so just hopping over the river to Minnesota felt pretty natural, but there is quite the friendliness difference between people from Milwaukee and people from Minnesota or from the Twin Cities in particular. It's a different vibe.
Yeah, they're too much beer over there in Milwaukee with the Brewers.
Milwaukee's got like more of a, kind of like Chicago vibe. It's like a little bit less passive, a little bit more in your face. Like not as much as, I think some of the stereotypes of East Coast vibes. But yeah, Minnesota is like passive aggressive, very kind. Everyone's really nice. But getting someone to like actually deepen a friendship is maybe the hard thing for Minnesotans because everyone's kind of incestuous and has been there for so long.
Amazing. Yeah. And definitely right on the East Coast vibes. It's like if somebody doesn't like you on the East Coast, they'll tell you, which is great. I appreciate that. The directness. So tough question coming at you here to get things rolling. Who is Lloyd?
Who am I? I am the co-founder and CEO of a company called Garage Grown Gear. I am a recent dad to I guess not that recent, but to a soon-to-be 1-year-old, but I guess the first year of a
It's recent, all things considered.
Yeah, fastest year of my entire existence. Yeah, I'm a paddler turned ultralight backpacker. I'm someone who really likes supporting small brands. I love having deep conversations. I love doing things outside and being active. I also recently helped stand up the Minnesota State Outdoor Business Alliance, which has been a long time coming in Minnesota. So, I think generally kind of just like someone who tries to get involved in as many parts of the outdoor industry as possible, or maybe as many spots as I'm wanted and desired.
So the description of this podcast is telling the stories of those building in the outdoor industry, those running the outdoor industry. And I specifically used outdoor instead of run or trail industry because I wanted to have conversations with people like you who are building cool stuff, a little, one ring beyond just running. So stoked to dive in here with you and talk more about backpacking and talk more about what you do in the outdoor space. It sounds like it's always been a part of your life, either personally or professionally, and now both. Where does that come from?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in Milwaukee and right on the shores of Lake Michigan, and so a lot of my youth was spent kind of dabbling in water sports, and started working up at a summer camp when I turned 18, and from there just led trips every summer for about a decade around the Great Lakes, and then up in Alaska, kind of combination of backpacking and kayaking trips from like 5-day trips to a month and a half trips. And that just kind of like really fostered a love and appreciation for solitude, for companionship and dependence on oneself, dependence on a small group of others, love for just traveling long distances slowly over long periods of time. And I think for me, backpacking is like the ultimate way to be able to experience one's proximity and connection to land. I mean, I think it's probably, I'm a casual runner, so nothing particularly to write home about, but I think there's such parallels between what a backpacker is versus a fast packer versus a trail runner versus an ultra marathoner. Just all seems kind of various degrees that require different gear, but you're doing kind of similar things across similar topography, just at different speeds. And because of that, you need slightly different stuff. But it's just a really intimate connection with land that continues to call me to it.
Yeah, I very specifically remember a moment that comes to mind as you're describing it and the way you're describing it. When I did rim to rim a couple of years ago, to stand on the North Rim and be like, whoa, I just traveled that by foot. And I don't know if you can call it running or fast packing or what, but moving through space, moving through nature and accomplishing something cool that most people wouldn't even consider. And there's such a gift in what we allow our bodies to do or what our bodies allow us to do in seeing all these spaces and places. So the last few years, I have to imagine, have accelerated the number of people interested in talking about being outdoors. What's been your experience, coming out of the pandemic with an eye on this space, both from a personal interest standpoint and also having a professional grasp on it, both from garage grown gear as well as recently Minnesota State Outdoor Business Alliance?
Yeah, I mean, the pandemic was, quite the disruptor of every aspect of life. But I think for the outdoor industry, it really shook things up, and I don't think it's really recovered to some extent. I mean, I think there was the initial just crisis of what's going on. We saw a number of businesses really just struggle because at the beginning of COVID, no one really knew what was happening. Everyone kind of just pulled back their spending, and economically, I think across the industry and across the globe, it was just a lot of existential dread. And then certainly the PPP loans came on through and really were a solid for a lot of brands. The pandemic saw a lot of people traveling domestically and not internationally, which was really big for backpacking. I mean, I think people think that backpacking is really expensive, which it is until you compare it to what traveling to Italy is like,
right?
Or, staying at a resort for a week. Then your $700 tent looks like a bit of a deal when it's compared to a single night in a luxury hotel or 2 nights or whatever. So yeah, I mean, I think there was this real boom. It was really a lot of inventory flew, and there wasn't a real ease of being able to replace it, either because factories were shut down, or because of the mills were shut down, or there was some part of the supply chain that was disrupted because of COVID, and that kind of then caused a whiplash of a way overbuying, anticipating that the demand from COVID would just continue, that it was no longer a blip, it was just a resizing of the industry. That created a giant glut of having too much inventory, which led to over discounting. And I think like this was the year where the outdoor industry was kind of supposed to get its feet under it again, a little bit better resized, kind of having moved through some of the inventory overload that it had, and then tariffs. So, I mean, I think it's nothing new to business owners of like, I think whenever, like adversity is just part of running a business. So like, I think of it as like, it's not about like preventing challenges from happening. Part of your job and responsibility of a business owner is to acknowledge that you are not running a business in a vacuum, and you never will. There will never be an ideal set of business circumstances that just allow you to be able to run your business without complications. If it wasn't tariffs, it would be something else. When it's not tariffs in a year from now, it will be something else. So it's not that one necessarily has to create a business that is impervious to any type of input and feedback. We think about it as like you kind of just have to be a duck on the water. You can only control the variables that you can control. You can only look so far down the road and try to be able to predict what's going to be able to be happening. But I mean, you kind of have to be able to look at your brand from a fresh light every day and say, am I doing the best that I can with the information that I have right now? And other than that, there's not too much that you can do, because you can't control the global economic status. You can't, control pandemics or who's at war with who, or, I mean, you can to some level, control who your elected officials are, but like not really. Voting is only a modicum of control. So I think like we're in this weird spot of an industry as an industry where I think there's a lot of businesses that are really struggling. And I think it's kind of at this confluence of tariffs. It's at this confluence of, I think, changing demographics, which obviously a constant thing throughout human history. But, consumer behavior is slowly changing over time in terms of the populations that use the outdoors. And so I think you're seeing just a weird kind of time for the industry. And I don't know if it's going to rapidly figure itself out, but like it's going to. And I think all the folks that are really doom and gloom about the industry, it's like, I mean, it's probably going to right size. We're probably going to, like, brands that are used to doing business the same way that they have for the last 40 years are going to change, or they're not going to exist. And I think some of that is hitting people really hard right now, especially with some of these really preeminent specialty shops in the space that, haven't really had to change how they did business, for the last half century, and are suddenly finding themselves in 2025 and saying, yeah, we're catering to an older demographic. We're losing out on the younger base online. Should we be starting a website and being like, man, you're 20 years late on that? And, so yeah, I think it's a bit of a reckoning that we're in right now. But I think if brands that are differentiating and are doing things different, that are connecting on personal levels, like they're finding success. I think it's the brands that are kind of expecting to be able to do the same old things over and over that are struggling.
You said a lot there that resonates quite a lot. Your analogy of being a duck on the water, you just kind of have to ride it, makes me think about how I talk about running, right? It's not about avoiding the waves. It's about learning to surf, right? You're going to get injured. You're going to have setbacks. You're going to have things that punch you in the face, right? What's the line? Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face.
I like that. I haven't heard that. That's
Mike Tyson said that.
Clever.
But I attribute it to my friend David Lamb, who attributes it to Mike Tyson. Anyway, so it's so interesting the way that you describe it, right? Because I think there are so many legacy brands that have been able to get by just getting by for so long. And are there any examples of brands that you've seen that, are those legacy brands that have made a hard pivot lately and adapted to 2025, or examples of brands that are young and scrappy that are dipping and diving and dodging at every opportunity in the best way? Like who's doing a good job of not getting punched in the face or getting up again after getting punched in the face?
I think there's a lot of brands to be able to look at for positivity these days. I mean, certainly like small brands are constantly getting punched in the face and having to reevaluate their plans constantly. And I think bigger brands, I think we're seeing brands, even brands like Black Diamond, kind of condense their product lines so that they can kind of have speak more coherently to their customer base. I think you're seeing brands like Nemo that are continuing to kind of they are a bigger brand in the space, but they've continued to be able to really hit this core audience while designing products that also hit slightly more traditional audiences at the same time. I think a lot of brands, as kind of have hit that notion of like, oh, this market is really big, so I need to design for the biggest part of the audience. And that has lost them market share to brands that are willing to come in and say, nope, I'm going to create the lightest thing, or I'm going to create the best thing. And I'm not targeting, the casual user. I'm targeting the core. And casual users and active users are going to be able to use those products, but I'm still going for that core enthusiast. So yeah, I think Nemo is a brand that definitely comes to mind. I mean, I think even brands like Cascade Designs that have been in the space for forever and have like a whole bunch of real legacy products. They come out with a product like the Neo Loft sleeping pad, which is like this car camping sized sleeping pad for I think it's a little under 2 pounds or right around 2 pounds. I mean, it's like one of the most luxurious items that you could have, and it could still fit within an ultralight kit if you were, accommodating in other spaces. So I think it's not every brand in the space, but I do think that the ones that are starting to peak, it's, perhaps even more obvious than the ones that aren't. I don't know the last time I've been excited about something coming out from Marmot or Sierra Designs or, Kelty, where like I just don't know what their point of view is anymore as a company. And it's not that like, I think the first sleeping bag I ever owned was like a Marmot Never Summer 0 degree bag. And that thing's great, but I don't know what they're doing in 2025. I just don't know what makes them different or separates them from the market. So I think like being able to have a level of innovation that you're putting forward, which I think is easier to find as a small brand. But when big brands are investing in innovation, like I've seen some product pitches from Mountain Hardware recently that have been really cool and really impressive. Those are the brands that are going to be able to find their way through, because people are going to look at them and say, okay, this brand and their products all have a point of view. And that won't mean that they just get lost in the noise, because I think a lot of brands are getting lost in the noise because there just is so much competition in every single space of the outdoor industry right now, trail running included.
How do you think about brand identity, or pushing more on the identity piece? How do you think about brand identity? I just had a conversation with a VP at Training Peaks, and we were talking about like the personification of a brand. And I don't mean that in a metaphorical sense. I mean like the people who represent the brand. Mm-hmm. And if you think of a brand, you think of the people, whether those are the sponsored athletes or the ambassadors that you see, or the influencers that you see, or the people who actually work at the brand, being out there at events and at trade shows and all these types of things. And I think my opinion is people are craving this. They're craving a human identity behind a brand, and it's no longer enough to have a good product. We're talking about this specifically around when you think of a sports nutrition brand like a Precision or a Tailwind or Scratch. Like when I think of Precision, I think of Hayden Hawks. When I think of Tailwind, I think of Courtney DeWalter. When I think of Scratch, I think of Gwen Jorgensen and Reed Burrows and like people, Dr. Alan Lim, the people who make the brand. And these are CPG brands, right? That they have a tangible good that you can see, touch, and consume. Mm-hmm. But I still think of people first. How do you interact with that concept?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I mean, I think there's definitely a celebrity around being a cottage brand maker in the ultralight space. Like people know Mateo from Z-Packs. Like people are familiar with who Bennett is from Jolly Gear. Like and like Anastasia from Kula Cloth like is front and center with her branding. And so I think that I feel like there's a couple different approaches for how to be able to do that. And I think for a small brand, it can be really beneficial to be able to put yourself front and center, to be able to make that personal connection, to make people feel like they're not only supporting a great product, but also someone who they feel connection to. I do think that is a harder concept to be able to scale. And it's one of the reasons why, even with Garage Grown Gear marketing, like most of my public facing stuff is within the industry. It's not really to the public. I have like one YouTube series that I pop on every couple of weeks to do, but largely I don't want the brand to all be about me. Like, it's not the Lloyd show. It's so much more. Like, I think not to say that I want Garage Grown to be the Amazon of anything, but I think Amazon is a perfect and a wild case study of like, I don't know how many people use Amazon that hate Amazon, but Amazon's service is like so good,
can't beat it,
so convenient that like people who hate it use
right.
it. Like,
yes.
I don't want people to hate Garage Grown, but I want people to find Garage Grown so unbelievably convenient and wonderful that even that person who left a 1-star review who absolutely hates everything about supporting small brands is like, well, I had to place that order because it was the only place I could get that thing, you know? And I think like that is something that I keep in my head is like, I want to build a brand for people that like hate me and still are going to be able to shop. And, you know, there's not I think a long list of folks that I've got beef with, but I think there's something about that of like, I've always wanted the brand to be more than just the Lloyd show. But I think that idea of having kind of like athletes be at the lead of that, I think that's a little bit different. And I think that can grow and scale more because that like level of endorsement, that level of kind of social proof is huge. And I think we see that a little bit within the backpacking space. I mean, I think kind of the athletes in that space are the FK tiers, the people who are doing the calendar year Triple Crowns, and they just have like way lower profiles, I think, than, you know, professional trail runners and professional runners in general. But, you know, it's interesting seeing kind of who decides to be able to lean into what type of marketing. Like, you know, I don't know how many people shop at REI know who the CEO of REI is. But REI has cultivated an identity around it. I think about a brand like a Bedrock sandals, you know, no professional athletes that I could name off of there, but I just have an image of my head of some, you know, dirty person on a bike wearing Bedrocks with like cut off jean shorts. You know, like I've got the image and the identity of what that is. And, you know, I feel like if I were going to wear a pair of Bedrocks, I would ultimately be way cooler than I am right now because, you know, I'd have them on my feet. So I think that it either has to be kind of one or the other. It has to be like a personal connection that makes you feel like you're involved in this thing, or it just needs to be so unbelievably good and so much better than anything else that like, it doesn't matter. Like that's just the place or the thing that you buy because it is such an industry standard and doesn't have competition.
Makes sense. I have not thought about it that way. I really like the example of build something that is so good that people hate use it, like Amazon.
I think that's the really.
It's the perfect example. Yeah, it's the perfect.
I've been resonating on this a lot recently with the idea of like. I mean, I don't know. We sell stuff. I sell stuff for a living. That's like my thing. But like how one grapples with capitalism in general, I think it's an interesting thing of like, how do you create something that is like worthy and has value? And I think about this also in the terms of like, not to take a hard pivot, but towards both climate change and diversity. Like I'm always baffled that, you know, take Minnesota, for example, that people want to mine in Minnesota and, you know, destroy natural resources that people use for recreation. Like recreation in those wilderness spaces like are a renewable resource that are such huge economic drivers. Like I think there's a case to be able to be made that you could not care about the environment at all, but as a, you know, dirty capitalist, like still be super into preserving public lands because it is
because you can sell tickets.
Totally. And I think like that is like a real thing. And similarly with diversity in and expanding accessibility to the outdoors, like
sell to more people.
Sell to more people. You could be totally like a total racist xenophobe, but if you're a diehard capitalist, you should want more people in the outdoors regardless of their skin color. And you know, I don't know. I just these are the thoughts that I have in my brain.
I've either had this conversation before or you and I spoke about this in our first meeting.
It's possible.
It probably, yeah. But to your point, like it totally makes sense. Why? Yeah, totally makes sense. Okay, rewinding back a little bit to Garage Grown gear. What is it? Where did the idea come from? And how are you building it?
Yeah, Garage Grown Gear is kind of your one-stop shop for all things ultralight backpacking. So we primarily work with small brands because they're often the ones that are in this space creating a lot of innovative products. A lot of people hiking a trail like the PCT, coming off of it, designing something and putting it into market. So a lot of the brands that we work with are, referred to as cottage brands, but we definitely work with some larger players in the space. And we kind of say that we do kind of two sides of the coin. We do the straight up retail. So we warehouse everything here in the Twin Cities in our warehouse here. And the other side of it is kind of the promotional side of what we do. So we do a lot of newsletter content. We do a lot of work through influencers, through different digital media outlets, social media, paid ads, kind of a little bit of the whole gambit, with the idea that a lot of these brands that we sell don't really know much about marketing or kind of how to be able to sell products in 2025. And so we take a lot of brands that people haven't heard of and a lot of products that people haven't seen, and we put them on a platform and try to market them and promote them and showcase them with really solid user reviews and create a platform full of stuff that you could use for long distance hiking. And that's really all we do.
And are you using a drop ship model, or are you holding inventory?
We hold inventory. Yeah. So we drop ship for 3 brands out of the almost 300 that we carry, but we've got about a 10,000 square foot warehouse in over in St. Paul. And we joke that we are the most millennial and least remote team that has ever existed, from buying to customer service to marketing to operations to fulfillment. Everything is in-house. Everything's at our HQ. So we really like having all touch points over the customer experience. I think it allows us to be able to deliver the best service and products to our folks on a quick, timely. When you're talking to us, if you're talking to customer service, they're not they're 5 feet away from the person who needs to be able to ship that thing. So we find that just really, really works for our team. And we've been doing this. So we started in 2013. My business partner, Amy Hatch, started it up in Idaho, kind of in the Teton Valley area. And I took it over about 9 years ago. At that point, a pretty different company. But I had started another company, and we merged 9 years ago, moved it out to St. Paul and to my basement, and took a very hard lean into ultralight backpacking, which was what I cared about, what I was interested in. Previously, Garage Grown was kind of more of a generalist, small brand company, so we carry like insulated mugs and yoga mats and skateboards, all from small brands, but not necessarily as much with an ultralight tilt. We've kind of just dove into our niche of. We've always kind of said that we'd much rather be a big fish in a small pond and kind of just own our space and our community and not try to get into areas that we don't actually know anything about. And I think there's a lot of benefit, especially kind of in a market where showing personality, differentiating what you're doing is so important, of just owning your lane and doing it better than anyone else. So that, like, I don't know. When people ask, like, who's Garage Grown's competition? I mean, honestly, I don't know. I mean, it's all of the players. It's the REIs, Amazons of the world, but it's literally impossible to work with smaller brands than we do. We work with brands pre-revenue, help them launch. We pay for folks' fabric runs up front so they can afford to be able to make us stuff. Like we get really in there. So I don't. It's one of those things where it's like, if you're doing everything that you can to do the best job that you can, you kind of lock down your space, and that's what we've been trying to do for a while now.
Is it like part accelerator? Like, is there infrastructure to help build the brands, or is it really once there's a proven model and maybe they just need distribution, they join forces with you?
Nothing like on an official level, but we definitely take brands from being unknowns to kind of having them be very relevant in the outdoor space. So, for example, we work with the brand that we launched this past fall. They needed support doing a fabric run, so we spotted them I don't know, $5,000 or $6,000 to be able to purchase their fabric up front, do the run. We purchased the run paid a little bit more for the run on the back end, sold through the couple hundred units that we got almost instantly, and took that brand from a brand that had not really sold anything previously to being a company that, we're buying a couple hundred units from a month. And so in the sense of, we're not necessarily like, we're not doing like we don't have like a super delineated system for how we like help expand brands.
Right,
we don't get involved in like working hands-on with brands marketing but we're definitely, if brands are looking to be able to grow, we can be a real adrenaline punch to what they're doing.
Got it. If you want to go deeper into the conversations we're having here, subscribe to the Long Run Labs Substack at longrunlabs.substack.com. We share insights, stories, and tools to help you go further in running, business, and life. This episode is sponsored by Eternal. Eternal is a science-backed preventative health company built for anyone who takes their health and training seriously and wants to live up to their peak. Located in San Francisco and New York City, Eternal provides comprehensive, integrated primary care services in addition to advanced testing and personalized health planning. They go beyond your biomarkers and data to provide real answers to any of your health concerns, from proactive care, acute care, and expedited referrals to performance testing, physical therapy, and personal training. They're healthcare providers that care about you and the lifestyle you strive to live. Whether you're trying to hit a PR, avoid injury, or simply want a better handle on your health, Eternal gives you the full picture and a plan of action. It's the kind of primary care I've always dreamed was possible. Thanks again to Eternal for supporting personalized, evidence-based care for athletes like us. One of the ways that it seems like you can do that is through your social presence. You have 98,000 on Instagram and 14,000 on YouTube. I just had a meeting with GoPro yesterday. GoPro has 21 million on Instagram and 50 million total. And they feel that they're a media platform that happens to sell things that make media possible, right? You look at Red Bull, it's the same thing. They're a media company that happens to sell stuff that gives you energy and wings, as they say. Is the approach to growing distribution via email lists, social presence, whatnot, like, is that a focus? I know you mentioned working with influencers and athletes and through use of paid stuff. Like, how do you think about the interaction of that, like tangibly, how distribution works?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'd say for us, like, email has been our bread and butter for years. I think it's the buying your platform versus renting it like you are on social. I mean, email has only been something that's become more and more profitable over the years. We're fortunate to play around with about a 200,000 person list that is just like a highly engaged. That is our sales channel. Social, I mean, we use it to be able to publicize things, but is very much like, it's a platform that we lean in for community. It's not one that we really even consider as a sales channel. And I think, other than emails, we run a lot of Google shopping campaigns. We've just found that as being like a great, especially with how easy and automated Google campaigns are now. Letting Performance Max really just do its thing has been something that has been profitable for us for, I don't know, as long as we've done it, 2+ years, whenever Performance Max got rolled out. And then, the influencer thing for us is like, we just, particularly on YouTube, I mean, that's just like such a platform that converts. And we kind of just decided earlier on of like, we could build our own YouTube channel and try to be able to push content towards people. But ultimately, there's already a ton of YouTubers in the space that are creating content that's more authentic than we'd be able to create because they're a third party. And how do we form genuine relationships with folks like Backpacking Light, like the Trek, to digital media platforms, with YouTubers like My Life Outdoors, Dan Becker, Miranda Goes Outside, because they've already got the channel. They already know what they're doing. And we kind of already just believe that like their audience would love GarageGrown if they just knew that we existed. So how do we tap into those spaces instead of having to build it up from the ground? So that's been a big thing for us is, forming those authentic connections with over years with prominent folks in the space who have trusted, genuine audiences that believe them, that follow them, that like them, and how do we have those be long-term relationships so we're not just like flash in a pan, oh, we're doing doing one piece of sponsored content with this person. No, like, we're doing six-month contract, year-long contract. You guys talk about whatever you want to talk about. Here's a bunch of products that we sell on GarageGrow. You choose. I'm not going to tell you what to talk to about. And I think that's a great way to be able to level up your marketing, because Meta ads, Google ads, to some extent, a lot of this stuff is kind of turn and burn at this point. Whereas I think the real way to be able to level up your marketing is to build genuine connections, because not everyone can do that. Anyone can run a Performance Max campaign. Not everyone can attract high level social media influencers or YouTubers to be able to push their brands.
This is a drum that I love beating. I've had this conversation probably 3 times this week with CEOs, founders, people who operate media companies and consumer brands. The concept of allocating spend to people versus Meta, right? It feels good to do it, but there has to be a business case for it as well. And so there has to be that ROI or ROAS to continue to drive that. So for you, what leads to a successful partnership? How do you create a successful relationship with an influencer, with an athlete, with someone who wants to talk about your brand?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, the responsibility is on myself and my team to be able to pick folks that we know align with our values and with the products that we sell. I think a lot of the times the frustration comes when there's a misalignment between, like, if we're trying to push ultralight backpacking content on a sailing channel, like, no wonder it's not going to be able to resonate, or a bushcrafting channel. Like, it's not going to, like, these are, particularly like bushcrafting or hunting. Like, it's not that those are audiences that won't use products on GarageGrow, but it's not exactly this same crowd. And that can be a great use of influencers, is to be able to expand the markets that you exist in, but it's not going to have the same return instantly. For us, like, we love to be able to start off with 6-month contracts, because if we're starting up a relationship, it's because we know the channel. We're not just like bopping on and seeing like, oh, you have this many views on your channel. Cool. It's, probably because myself or a member of our marketing team has been seeing this YouTuber create content for a long time and know that they have authenticity, know and like the content that they're putting out. And, we look at kind of a baseline of a 3x return that we need for YouTubers that we work with. And so we look at that in both what our fixed costs are per month, because that's typically how we do it, of like, we agree to X number of videos a month. We cut folks a check, and then they also get affiliate commissions on top of that. So whatever our like affiliates plus fixed costs are, we look at that every 6 months to be able to determine if this partnership is still rolling. And for us, like, that pretty much always hits with folks that we're sponsoring. At times it's meant that we've kind of needed to rethink, but most of the time that's just changing up the pacing. So maybe their audience can't handle the number of spots that we're doing, or the creator is having a hard time thinking of how authentically to be able to intertwine at a once a month pace. So we kind of just need to switch up our cadence. And I think we think about this as how we think about working with brands. We rarely drop products, but we do evaluate our stock levels all the time. And so we might need to change the amount of inventory we have on a product if it's not moving, but rarely do we dump it, because we took it on in the first place because we know that it's good. And I think that's how we tend to think of influencers in the space too, is like, typically it's just about trying to calibrate the frequency, not so much if we're going to do this or not, or maybe it's adjusting the monthly costs to be able to figure it out. But yeah, that 3x return is kind of our North Star, because if we're able to hit that, we're probably covering our costs on it. And, it's not really tracking for what the long-term value is of repeat customers, of just kind of brand awareness of customers that convert, beyond a 30-day kind of window. So yeah, that's kind of what we use as our gauge.
Cool. I love that you mentioned affiliate. This podcast is sponsored by Superfiliate, which is an affiliate platform that I've used with a bunch of brands that I've worked with. And the intention of working with an affiliate platform or affiliate provider, it just aims to incentivize the publisher or the creator to make it easy to promote the brand, and then put the tracking and the simplicity behind attribution back into the hands of the brand. So I partner with Superfiliate because I love that platform. I love using it, and they gave me a demo of the brand side. I mean, it's fantastic. So you mentioned that you work with creators in both a flat fee model and an affiliate model. As someone who's a creator myself, I love that because it's performance oriented. I'm a career salesperson. I love selling, as you just heard. If you go to Superfiliate, let them know I sent you, and those guys will take great care of you. But seriously, it is. I've used all of the affiliate platforms. Anyway, why have you chosen to go both flat fee and affiliate? And is there any chance that you're also using Superfiliate? But yeah, why do you use both?
For us, I think the real thing is that just affiliate commissions are not enough to be able to get folks to really pay attention to you on the basis that you want them to, or to be able to dive as deeply. Like we probably have 200 affiliates through GarageGrown that use our links occasionally, but it's very passive. Sometimes, vast majority of times, GarageGrown is never even mentioned or named. It's just, it's the link that you click through. I think especially, and that works it's really great, especially for smaller influencers. If you're getting a couple thousand videos or views per video, it doesn't really make sense. We don't want to dive in and have to get in the weeds on sponsoring creators that are kind of still pretty small. But affiliate commissions provide them with an incentive to be able to do it. With our larger influencers, we want to be able to have that sponsor because we want to be more front and center of their content. We don't want to be just an afterthought or a link. We want to be kind of the centerpiece. So, if someone's doing if we're doing a sponsored video that's, 10 of my favorite ultralight backpacking accessories, that gets us more access to the platform in a way that really centers GarageGrown gear in the narrative. So I think that, with folks that we're doing that sponsored content on, it allows us to be more prominent on their channel. I think when we do it we've had YouTubers that we've worked with for 4 or 5 years. And the great thing about that is that doing the monthly payments is that gives them a backbone to be able to fall on if they're not having to chase sponsors all the time. It gets us better rates for videos because they're choosing consistency of payment over, high payment amounts. And I think that creates a real win-win of audiences get the authenticity of knowing that they're not just a passerby or sponsorship, that it's real. They're investing in a creator that they enjoy. The creator gets a financial backbone, and a place like GarageGrown gets a really authentic voice in the space that will ride or die with them. And I think with that, and when you're also investing money up front, you get a lot of untangible benefits of, even in videos you're not sponsoring, folks are more willing to be able to lean in, or if you're running a sale, people chuck in content that they just want to do because they like you and trust you and you're an important partner of theirs. And I think whenever you can create real, genuine relationships that are reciprocal, that is where value is. And I think all of us are just searching for value, and where there is a valuable relationship, there is money.
Right.
Because value is just not some ethereal thing that exists in the space. If there is value, chances are dollars are chasing it in some way.
Definitely. So a parallel that I am coming to in the run space is the feed. So the feed has helped launch a bunch of small brands. The feed has aggregated everything you need for sports nutrition and some recovery stuff in one place. But it's interesting because a lot of they've launched a sponsorship program, right? They're sponsoring athletes and races, and they've even done event sponsorship. Mm-hmm. A lot of the brands that exist within the feed are well-known brands, right? Scratch, Tailwind, Precision, Bonk, all these things that are big brands within a niche space. People know them and they have their own brand marketing campaigns on their own. Lately, they've been creating their own OEM brand products. They've created creatine, they've created whey protein, they've created gels, and a high carb mix. And so the commentary around that has been like, this is always the plan, right? Build a group of people who are buying their stuff from you, and then make all the stuff at and sell it at higher margin. I have two very different questions that or threads that I want to pick on from here. The first, I suppose, is talk to me about how Garage Grown thinks about the OEM brand versus your brand. And particularly because it's a focus on small brands, like why are the people, or I guess there is still benefit to the influencers posting and tagging those brands, but couldn't they just go buy direct from them? Like how do you think about that? And then I'll get into the second part of that question.
Well, Jonathan, I think that's a good one. I mean, I think to some extent it goes back to that Amazon question of like, we want to be so convenient and such a one-stop shop that like, why would you want to go buy 20 items from 20 different websites when you can just buy it from Garage Grown? Like I use this stupid comparison, but like, do you buy your toilet paper from the toilet paper store?
I actually buy it from Who Gives a Crap directly online.
There you go. Okay, so you're one of the few people that buys toilet paper direct. But
sorry, I didn't prove your. That was shitty of me.
Yeah, lol. I think it is something that like, and we always say like buying direct is great. If it makes more sense to be able to buy direct, do it. And if it makes more sense to be able to buy a number of your stuff directly from Garage Grown, please do. Because I think, we sell a lot of small stuff. Like we sell like 16-cent mustard packets. We sell tiny little, jars that cost, $1. We also sell, dehydrated meals that if you want to buy dehydrated meals directly, you're going to be paying a lot in shipping because they're low cost, high weight. And I think a lot of folks, when you kind of come to a place like Garage Grown or, really any online retailer, there is just a convenience factor because, very rarely, not very rarely, but typically people are buying more than one product when they're shopping at Garage Grown. I think and if folks do buy directly, that's great. But I think a lot of folks kind of just come to Garage Grown because it's easy. They don't have to monitor Reddit or Instagram to be able to even know that half of these brands exist. Because I think a lot of times folks just kind of discover things through Garage Grown and then are like, all right, I'm on here. This is a trusted, known platform. I've never purchased from this random tiny brand that has a website that looks like it was made in 1990. But I do know that I can trust it because it's on Garage Grown. So I think there's a trust, there's a convenience, there's a known entity and service. And I think when you're dealing with small brands, removing as many unknowns as possible is really important to having people feel comfortable in their purchase. So I think that's one thing. I think the idea, like I have a lot of, the feed sites like Huckberry are ones that I really like. And I think that is, a similar reason why people shop at those types of places, just because of the convenience, because of the curation, because of the fact that when you buy something from Garage Grown, it's going to work for the use case that you want it for. But no, we have definitely taken the very opposite approach to the feed of we have absolutely no desire to do that. And I think a big part of that is like, not to keep throwing Amazon into this, but like that's what they did is that and what REI did is that they just basically made like rip-off versions of brands that innovated in the space so they could sell at a higher margin. And it's not that we aren't in this to be able to make money, but we're in this to be able to support our brands. And so we are not going to come out with the products that we see on our site because we are not looking to devalue and undercut the brands that we have on our site. We're looking to grow and support the brands that we have. And that doesn't come from shining the light unnecessarily on us or throwing our brands under the bus for a couple of percentage points of margin. And I would actually even say that we've gone one step further and we're kind of exploring it right now we're exploring how to be able to work with manufacturing partners to be able to create brands, products for our brands that we license the designs from our brands so that like we could just cut our brands out of that equation and just work with the manufacturer to make a Diddy pouch. But we're figuring out how we can be able to use the designs that our brands have and they're not necessarily great always at working with manufacturers or figuring out how to be able to scale, so that we can work directly with the manufacturers, pay them a licensing deal back to our brands themselves, and then sell them on GarageGrown, so that we can have the inventory that we need when we want it, and not have it be dependent on their own manufacturing schedule, which is when you're working with small brands can vary if you're sick for a week or you have a kid and suddenly you can't sew as much stuff. So I think that is like a really important thing for us, is like, you're not going to start seeing a GarageGrown Gear in-house brand that just undercuts our companies. Because I think that ultimately really, you see that with, I think, big players like REI, who have kind of disenfranchised some of their audience because they've had some business practices that just don't align with the values of their community. And we're not from outside of the community trying to monetize our community. Like, we are part of the community trying to do right by our community. And it's something that we've had so many opportunities to be able to do that. And at every turn, we've just been like, no, we actually don't want our brand on your water bottle. Just like, put your own brand on the water bottle so we can help promote your brand. Like, we don't want our stuff on your stuff. We want your stuff.
Do you think that ultimately that protects the relationship with the consumer, right? I think about this through the lens of a person who has been buying on the feed and sees, the white label or the feed branded stuff. And maybe they don't care, or maybe they do care. Like, how do you think about it from the consumer perspective?
I think some do. I think probably most don't, but like, we do. And I think, like, we work with a lot of brands that don't work with other people. And the reason they do is because they trust us, because they build a relationship with us. The reason why brands like Z-Packs sell through GarageGrown and don't sell anywhere else is because we are a known entity. Because, like, I know the dudes that work there. We've been working together for years. Like, we run in the same circles. Like, we hang out at the same events. Like, we hang out at the same hotel bar late at night after a trade show. And so for me, those relationships are not something that is worth, like, our platform is built on
trust.
Trust. Yeah, I was going to say good vibes, but like, trust is like way more of a
good vibes and trust.
Yeah. And I just, I'm not willing to sacrifice that. Like, I'm not willing to, like, it's kind of like I'm making a lot of really bad comparisons, but like, I watched an interview recently with the dude who owns Arizona iced tea, and people ask him, like, why have you not increased the price? Why is it
99 cents, 79 cents, whatever. Yeah.
And he's like, I don't have to. And I like what we're doing. So, like, why would I do that just to be able to make a little bit more money? I've got plenty of money. And not that GarageGrown is rolling in cash, but like, the thing that makes us special is the authenticity. And it's not worth a couple of extra bucks to be able to jeopardize that at all. And if customers want to be able to find generic versions of their best-selling of some of our best-selling products, like, they can find them all over Alibaba and Tian and or Temu and Shein, and all of those places already have generic versions of what we make, and they'll be way cheaper than what we'd be able to make them for anyway.
I'm going to have a conversation with Laura Jorgensen, who's the co-founder of Fuel Goods, which is an alternative option to the feed. They're based in Asheville, North Carolina. And they were a sponsor of my podcast For the Long Run in the past. And it was really fun working with, like, a small brand and, working directly with the founder and the people behind the brand. And, like, yeah, it was the same thing. Like, they decided to go even more narrow than the feed and work with less brands and curate the selection more for that same exact reason, right? It's not like they don't put brands on Fuel Goods to sell them. They put brands on there because they've vetted them and they've validated them, and they want to put their words and trust behind it. So it's an interesting model, and they say trust is earned in drops and lost in buckets, and so it's like and I think about this when I think about brand partnerships and how I think about brand partnerships, and like, I've been talking to the internet for 12 years, and there's trust from the people who have been listening over that time, and that's the most valuable piece of it all, right? For someone who is making recommendations and talking to people and this kind of stuff, like, you're only as good as your word. And for a brand like yours, you're only as good as, the Trustpilot reviews and the public perception of what people think when they navigate to your site.
Totally. I mean, we think of growth and revenue as a byproduct of running a good company. Like the goal, like obviously we're in business. We want to be able to make money, but like if we're not doing right by our customers, we're not doing right by our brands, and we're not doing right by ourselves, we do not deserve to exist as a business. And so we should fail. And, like I think, again, it kind of goes back to that thing of like, we want to be able to provide value. And we believe that if at the end of the day, we're doing that, there's going to be value that comes back to us and to our brands. But if that doesn't happen authentically, or we need to kind of do something weird or dicey to be able to get that, like do something different,
I had the exact same conversation yesterday with Ariel Knudsen, the CEO of Vogel, and we were talking about they have a paid member program called Vogel. So you pay and you get to be part of this community. You get specific discounts and meetups and whatnot. And I'm privy to the financials of this company, and I could see that Vogel members are worth 3 times more from a average order value and lifetime value standpoint. And so I asked her, I was like, is that something you strive for? Are you looking to grow that program? Is that the reason for the program? And she was like, no, the reason for the program is to build community, and building a good community, like the sales will come. But if we build community for sales, we'll do it in quite a different way than the way we've done it. And that's not who we want to be.
Mm-hmm. And ultimately, like, you found a brand because you wanted to be a positive reflection on like your values. And like, I want to be proud of Garage Grown. Maybe that's a little like woo woo, but I don't want to run a crappy brand. And not that the feed is crappy. Like the feed is great. It's just not our business model. And we don't really want to play in that space.
How different do you think this conversation would be if we had it 30 to 50 years ago?
Wildly different acronyms for sure. Yeah, the internet changed everything. I mean, it's and I think to some extent, like, people are still realizing that the internet, I mean, just going back to even talking about specialty retailers starting to try to build websites in 2025, like we're still at some weird confluence between like traditional versus modern, and AI just seems to be kind of like weaseling its way in there. But it feels like everyone is kind of existing in like different centuries right now, and it'll be fascinating to see. I don't know where industries and markets spin.
Yeah, I can't wait to find out, but I love the journey to get there.
Yeah, sure.
So, Lloyd, this has been a blast. I know why Emily connected us. We were connected by Emily Holland of Wild Poppy, who I've been working with forever now on my podcast, and I'm grateful for that connection that she made a few weeks ago.
Yeah, shout out Emily. She's great.
Fantastic. Yeah, if you're a podcaster that needs help with your business, check her out. Lloyd, this has been a blast. Where can we find you on your corner of the internet?
GarageGrownGear.com. Follow me on LinkedIn. Pretty active there.
Sweet.
Thanks so much for having me, Jonathan. I really appreciate it.
Of course, this was great. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Long Run Labs. If you like this episode, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who's building something of their own. We'll be back next Tuesday with more stories at the intersection of endurance and entrepreneurship from the people shaping the outdoor industry in ways big and small. Until then, keep showing up, keep asking questions, and we'll see you out there. This show is produced by Dylan Delaney of Delaney Video LLC, with musical composition by Brian Walters of Single Track Sound, and managed overall by Emily Holland of Wild Poppy Creative.